Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism. Have you ever viewed yourself as a storage unit? Well, I'm going to explain to help you understand how narcissistic shame works, that really if you're in a narcissistic relationship, you are just simply the storage unit for the narcissistic person's shame. So let's talk about why that takes a toll on you. So let's talk about shame. Shame and narcissism go together like birds of a feather. So let's think of it this way. Did you ever know that you are giving the narcissistic person sort of free storage space for their shame? Because you, as a person that is close to them, gets to be the repository for their shame, as anyone who would get close to them would be. And that doesn't feel good, because survivors of these relationships already hold their own shame burden. So if you're in one of these relationships, you might be like, oh my gosh, this is my life. I'm so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed I'm staying in this. I can't figure this out. Or you might even think things like, I'm not even competent enough to make a relationship work. Everyone else likes them. What's wrong with me? I don't want people to see my relationship, that kind of thing. So to stay in a narcissistic relationship means giving up on your own needs, because the narcissist needs you to provide fully for theirs. This doesn't happen in a day. If you have narcissistic parents, this was the indoctrination of your childhood. Your needs weren't recognized. Your parents may have even been annoyed by your needs, and the child, instead of seeing their parents clearly as selfish, instead grow to blame themselves. Now, this can extend into adulthood, and then you make similar relationship choices that sort of mirror this dynamic in adulthood. There are those damned almighty trauma bonds. And for those of you who want to geek out on this kind of theoretical stuff on shame and narcissism, I can't recommend Daniel Shaw's work on this. Go look him up on Amazon or something, get his books. They're really, really brilliant, but it's sort of high level kind of stuff. We internalize, though, the shame. That's the takeaway. We internalize the shame, and then we learn to hate and blame ourselves because we've basically internalized their bad feelings. Remember that narcissism is all about projection. So let's break it down. The narcissistic people need other people. Frankly, more than healthy people need people, because a healthy person is a self-sustaining person. Narcissists need people because they need their validation. So narcissism, when you really break it down, it's a personality style that's about dependency. Think about that for a minute. The people stuck in these relationships often view themselves as the dependent one, but in fact, it's the narcissists who need us. You actually have the power, and the narcissistic folks do not want you to know that. The way projection works, and remember, projection is a defensive and an unconscious process. It's not like they're like, time for some projection. It almost happens under the level of awareness. Narcissistic people project their dependency on others. Dependency is sort of embarrassing and shameful for them because it feels weak to them. We become the vessel for that projection, the bucket for their shame. And so we take it on. They love bomb us. They draw us in. The narcissist projects their icky dependency and shame into us and onto us. They call us out as narcissists, or at least they call us things like selfish. We are willing to entertain that because of our own self-doubt, so we try harder and harder and harder in the relationship, and we blame ourselves more and more and more. And just like that, one day, we realize that we are basically become a storage unit for their shame, and we blame ourselves for the mess that the relationship is, the mess also that within us was created by their projection. So then we make the mistake of reading modern relationship books and those many proverbs I talk about, and we end up with, well, all these books are saying there's two sides to every story, and both people are responsible for relationship problems, are they? I suppose if we wanted to take a hardline stance, we could say to the non-narcissist in the relationship who took in that shame, dump it, that's your side of the story, and walk away. But we know it's not that simple. The books tell us that we are to blame also. They say two sides and all of that stuff. And if we came from a narcissistic family, we would think that this is normal, that we are to blame. It's how we were indoctrinated, and the narcissistic dynamic then persists. It's so toxic because for so many folks, the love bombing feels like a real correction. I finally found it, my love story. I came from such a sad beginning, and here I finally got it, my big fantastical love story. It's a childlike fantasy coming true. But just when that idealization ends, and it always ends, is exactly the point at which the narcissist also starts seeing you and calling you selfish, because they have now started projecting their dependency onto you. And then the devaluation begins. The narcissistic person lacks a fully formed identity, and so they're kind of dipping into your identity to fully form themselves. In that way, we could almost think of narcissism as a form of identity theft. They slowly lure you in, then they dominate you, then they kind of need you, so then they project shame on you, and there you are, you're off to the narcissistically abusive races. Now, what do? Ideally, therapy. In addition to that, is also you getting good with you, your solitude, your experience in the world, your identity, your successes, your interests. Get interested in them yourself. Narcissistic parents did not and will not cultivate this. None of them are interested in what is happening outside of them. So somehow you need to find a way to become interested in yourself without the support of another person, because if you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're not going to get that from them. Frankly, once all of us, if we ever did all get good with ourselves, the narcissists would all be out of luck. But that is the work, and it isn't easy to do that work alone without therapy or without social support. But you know how if someone doesn't pay the rent on a storage unit after a couple of months, it gets auctioned off? Kind of plan on that. They don't get to use your soul as a place to park their shame. Put their shame out on the curb, be prepared for their anger because you just kicked them out of that space, and let someone else bid on their shame. Kind of like they do in that storage war show, right? Because the other people who want to bid on it, they can have it. Stop letting their shame in. You got to be aware it's happening now. Just when they're sort of like, oh, how could you? You're so selfish. You're so that. You catch yourself. You want to self-blame. Say, wait a minute. I'm not selfish. You don't push back and say, I'm not selfish. Don't defend. But you say to yourself, ding, you know what's happening. It's projection. Smile politely. Walk away. And then do the deep dive to wonder, well, what am I doing in this relationship? And if I'm going to stay, how do I figure out better boundaries? No one should be living rent-free in your head, your heart, or your soul. Thanks again.